This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, otherwise known to some of you as the Pen Lady. Now, back in November, we reviewed the Microsoft Surface Pro 4. We reviewed the iPad Pro, both of those pen-enabled products that are very good for art and all that sort of thing. And one thing we hadn't covered was the Wacom Cintiq Companion 2, and Wacom was good enough to reach out to us and say, hey, you should cover our product, and they're right, we should. This is certainly the professional preferred tool still. I think for those folks who are working in the industry, that is doing art, illustration, that sort of thing for companies, whether it be video game design, billboards, all that sort of thing. And it is a different sort of animal. Look at how thick this is and how rugged. I don't mean thick and like, ooh, it's ugly thick, but you know, it's sturdy, it's rubberized. This is the sort of thing that if you drop on your foot, it will hurt. I can tell you, it survived being dropped from a table onto my foot. My foot really, really hurt for about a half an hour. The tablet was fine. This is an Intel Core i7 tablet that we have here, 16 gigs of RAM, a 512 gig SSD. It's a full computer. Wacom also makes Cintiqs that are just digitizer tablets. That is, you draw on the screen and you see the picture there, but there's no PC inside. This has a full Windows 8.1 Pro PC. Yes, they're still shipping this with Windows 8.1, not Windows 10. Maybe with the next refresh that'll change. It has the creature comforts you'd expect, like stereo speakers and all that sort of thing, but it's just not your average PC. We're going to look at it now. Well, we've reviewed just about every pen-enabled tablet that's on the market except for the granddaddy, which is the Wacom Cintiq Companion 2. That's the latest generation. Both a tablet PC and a drawing tablet all in one. There is a Cintiq, as those of you who are artists know, that is just a drawing tablet where you draw right on the display. This one actually has Intel 5th generation Core i3, i5, i7 CPUs, 13.3-inch QHD display, express keys. You can see them right there. So those of you who are used to using that from existing Wacom tablets will feel right at home. It comes with that stand in the back, has Bluetooth keyboard, and the Pro Pen is included. It's 3.75 pounds, so this is no lightweight tablet, but there are heavier things on the market. Obviously, on the lighter end, Surface Pro 4 would be the competitor that is a lighter PC. This is not cheap. We have the high-end model, the Core i7 at 512 gig SSD, 16 gigs RAM. This is $2,500. This is for the pro market, really. Those of you who are professional artists and illustrators, and you're probably using a 27-inch Cintiq at work, and this is something that you can take away with you and continue working on with consistency. For the rest of you out there who are looking for a PC first and an art tablet second, this might not be the one for you. We'll find out why now. Well, one nice thing is when you spend the big bucks, you get some toys with your toys. First off, you get the Wacom Pro Pen. Now, they make several different pens, and that's one of the pluses for Wacom products. You have several different pens, several different nibs. If you like a felt tip, like I do, for example, you've got that. There's a variety. Anyway, Pro Pen in its nice little eyeglass style case right here with a bunch of replacement nibs. It's going to take you a while to wear all these out, and your nib puller is right over here. You get the Bluetooth keyboard, which is actually pretty pleasant to type on. It's small, it's compact, it is glossy on the other side, so it will pick up fingerprints. It's like a little mirror there, but anyway, it works. It works quite well. And this is the stand. This is the thing I love to hate. And like the pen, it's grippy, and it picks up every piece of cat hair and schmutz, and if you have dandruff, everybody's going to know because it's going to all be on this pretty soon. But the good part is it's grippy because this part is actually the base, and then we have 3 different angles. You have 50 degrees, you have 35 degrees, you have, I think it is 20 or 25 degrees, depending on which one of these you use and bring up. So obviously you've got the shortest one here, and then you got your next shortest one, and so on. So you get the idea there. Now, the reason I'm not too fond of it is because it fits into the slots on the back of your very expensive product right here, and it's a little hard to get in, and it just doesn't ever feel stable to me. Now, it hasn't fallen yet, except for one time when I was trying to put it together, and that's when it did hit my foot and nearly break my toe. So it goes in the back like that. And it's you know, it's sturdy. You can draw against that, no problem. Obviously, I'm hitting on it. And if you like it lower, like most of us would when you're doing something like drawing, you can drop it. Ooh, that was a scary sound. All the way down like that. And of course, you can actually use it completely flat too, and it just gives it a little bit of elevation off the table. It has rubber feet built in on the back, so you can use it like a traditional drawing tablet flat on the desk. Very grippy, rubbery feet, so that works well. Lots of ventilation here, and you'll almost always hear the fan going on this guy. Now, it's a dual-core 28-watt CPU in here, which is a lot like what's in the 13-inch Retina MacBook Pro and the Vio Z. Not the Vio Z Canvas, the Vio Z, which is the convertible that we reviewed that has the flipping display on it. So not as powerful as the Vio Z Canvas, which actually has a quad-core, full 45-watt CPU in size, which is a lot more umphy, about, almost twice as fast as this guy here. But this is still faster than the average Ultrabook and faster than the Surface Pro 4, which uses 15-watt CPUs and lower-end Intel HD 520 graphics, unless you go for that Core i7 where you get the Iris graphics meant for 15-watt package. This has here Intel Iris 6100 graphics. This is running on Intel Broadwell 5th generation. They haven't updated it to 6th generation yet, probably because they were waiting for that Iris Pro graphics to be ready, and Iris graphics for the 28-watt package. Intel is still rolling those things out right now, so we won't fault them with that. The fact that this still ships with Windows 8.1 Pro instead of Windows 10, of course, you can do the download and update yourself. We will say, goodness, guys, it's time to do something about that. All right, you've gotten the idea from looking at this already that this is more like your, well, graphics tablet than it is like a PC, though it is indeed a PC. This really is not the same, even though they do overlap in functionality, as something like Surface Pro 4 over here. Surface Pro 4 is very consumer-facing. It has definitely what I would call a more beautiful display. It does have higher color gamut. It has a significantly higher brightness. It has a thin and light package that's easy to take anywhere, and it has an N-Trig pen, which is different from the Wacom EMR pen, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So if you're looking for something that is just really also going to be your PC, you're going to watch movies on it, you want to read really sharp text, you want to read magazines and comic books, I would go with Surface Pro 4. It's portable, the screen is better for those sorts of things, and it's got plenty of horsepower too. Granted, not quite as much, but still. And then there's something like the iPad Pro, the thin and light tablet. Apple Pencil is optional, really great for drawing on. Obviously, you're not going to be using Windows or even Mac OS 10 programs. You're going to be limited to what iOS offers, and those are rapidly improving, but still, very different use case. This does not run a desktop operating system, unlike the Cintiq. It's very thin, it's very light, but it is great for drawing. Also, a lot cheaper. So, very different kinds of products here. Now, we're going to talk some more about what the benefits are of the Cintiq. So let's talk about the art-centric features here. First off, you have the express keys. I have them running on that side, being left-handed. So you can use those for things like application-specific menus, handy for Photoshop, that sort of thing. You've got radial menus, you've got Photoshop shortcuts, you've got space, you've got control. You can program some of these. The center one will be your home button in the land of Windows. So for those of you who are used to using a Cintiq, again, at work or something like that, this is going to feel very familiar to you. So will the pen. This is your traditional Wacom EMR pen, electromagnetic. This is not electrostatic like the new Wacom AES pen or N-Trig, which have the battery in the pen. With this, you have the digitizer being the active layer that provides the power. This is technology that's been around for at least 10 years, so a lot of graphic artists are accustomed to it and the way that it feels. It has very good palm rejection. We'll do some drawing later so you can see that. So you can rest your hand on the screen. 2048 levels of pressure. Now, N-Trig's at 1024. You're not going to really be able to feel the difference between two of those as long as the pressure curves are implemented well, which they are on both of those. But one thing you do have here, and Apple Pencil does this as well, is you have tilt, which is great for drawing. And depending on the pen, if you're using the Art Pen, not the Pro Pen, you'll even have rotation sensitivity. For those who are doing, say, virtual oil brushes, that can be particularly meaningful, not so much if you're doing pencil sketching. The screen has actual tooth on it. They call it a micro finish. I know at the last generation it was actually a permanently installed screen protector, or fairly permanently, that could get scratched up. I believe they have changed things up here a bit. The good news is it creates a lot of tooth. This feels nicer than drawing on glossy glass, and that would mean better than Surface Pro 4, Surface Book, or the iPad. With those, the pen tips have improved, so they're mitigating some of the icky drawing on glass feeling, so that's nice. The bad news is it still glares, as you can see here. And the even worse news is that though this has pretty good color gamut, it's about 93% of sRGB and around 74% of NTSC, it's not very bright. They claim 150 nits of brightness, and the Surface Pro 4 is over 400, and your average good laptop is around 300 these days. So it's not easy to use in very brightly lit offices. It's hard for us to even shoot this screen here with any studio lighting on it. So this is not going to be a screen that you're going to love for watching movies, for example. Also, the tooth on the display makes it a little harder to read the text on the screen. Even if you're looking at something like the labels on the icons, they're just a little bit fuzzier looking because of the anti-glare or microfinish, as they call it, on the display. So nice for drawing, adequate color gamut, certainly even for professional work, but as a content consumption product, not so great. Now, as you'd expect from a PC, you've got plenty of ports here, and a lot more than Surface Pro 4, not really more than the Vio Z Canvas though. So we have 3 USB 3.0 ports here. We have a combo mic headphone jack, your SD card slot going on there, a mini display port as well. Now, interestingly, you can also use the included cables, and basically you're going to have HDMI in instead of out. So you can hook this up to your Mac or to your Windows PC and use this as a regular Cintiq, not a Cintiq Companion, that is to say a display that you can draw on, a drawing pad for your computer. So you could be using this at work, drawing on it, and then you can unplug it, take it home, and finish your work. That is kind of neat. Now the opposite side, we just have controls. We got our volume, we have the power slider here. Slide it and hold it for a couple of seconds to turn it on. And that's our rotation lock over here. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And on the back side, this is not meant for you to take apart. The back is not removable here. Consider this a sealed unit. You got ventilation over here. You got nice grippy spot on the back, and you got your slots for your stand, and that's about it. So not something that you're going to service at home yourself if you want to. So that means also get the configuration that you want. Again, available with Core i3, i5, and i7 dual-core CPUs inside. You can get it with 4, 8, or 16 gigs of RAM and 128, 256, 512 gig SSDs. And the base model has a 64 gig SSD. This base model that we don't have, but that would be a Core i3, 4 gigs of RAM, and a 64 gig SSD for $1,400. Nobody would want that configuration and really want to have the horsepower to work with large graphics files smoothly, and 4 gigs of RAM is not much. 64 gigs of storage, boy, just Windows alone is going to use up, and some core programs, half of that storage. So I suspect that most people are going to be looking at the Core i5 configuration with 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gig SSD at the minimum, and that one is around $1,600. So this is not a cheap proposition by any means. Now we have the top of the line $2,500 model with the Core i7-5557U. That is a 3.1 gigahertz dual-core CPU, 16 gigs of RAM rather, and that 512 gig SSD. That SSD is a SATA interface SSD. Toshiba makes it, and you can see our scores right here, which we would expect to be pretty good. That's not a bad number at all for PC Mark 8 home accelerated. 3272 there. So that's almost 30% quicker than a dual-core 15-watt Ultrabook of the Core i5, Core i7 ilk. Not the higher-end Core i7 that has Iris graphics, but your standard Core i7 there. Geekbench 3, healthy numbers. Again, even the single-core number is a little bit better than we've seen on some 15-watt CPUs, unsurprisingly, because this is 28 watts, so you got more horsepower to work with. For 3D Mark, the Iris 6100 scored P1905. That's a performance test, the 720p test. That's an okay number. It's honestly Surface Pro 4, the highest-end Core i7 configuration with Iris graphics, could do just as well. And here's our extreme score, 539. So that's that. So good numbers. Not as good as Vio Z Canvas, but better than Surface Pro 4, unless you're talking about the highest end configuration. Now, as you might suspect, battery life is not going to be super duper fantastic here. The tablet may be 3.75 pounds, bigger than some of the competition, but there's still not that much room for battery in here. And the faster dual-core CPU and that fan that is always running here do use up power. So we've averaged 4 to 5 hours. That's actually using it as an art tablet, so that's the good news there, even using Photoshop and programs like that, not just for doing Word and Excel, which I don't think is a primary use case for this kind of tablet. The other slight disappointment is Wi-Fi. This is using Intel 7265 802.11n single band Wi-Fi. So that's a Haswell to Broadwell generation Wi-Fi module that Intel made, and it was not everybody's favorite. It was used in the Vio Flip 15, for those of you who remember that. We'd like to see dual band Wi-Fi with this. Now, it behaved pretty well. We didn't really have any terrible problems with it. Range was decent, not exceptional, but only single band Wi-Fi here, and of course Bluetooth 4.0, which the keyboard uses. So how about actually drawing and digitally painting with this? We have Clip Studio Paint running right here, and I've got the equivalent of a colored pencil sketch going on here. Now, the feel of this on the glass, and let me change colors to something a little bit more appropriate here. Let's do that. And we'll switch over to a different tool. Use a pastel. This feels just very nice. The texture of the screen is excellent on this. The follow speed is pretty good. One thing that drives me a bit crazy about Wacom EMR, and always has, is the parallax, which is in part because you have an extra digitizer layer on top of the display that is the active digitizer that provides power and the brains of what's going on here. The pen tip offset, especially as you change your viewing angle a little bit, might not seem, you're not going to see it so much here, let's go with the pencil, exactly where you think it is. So if you're doing a fine line over here, and I think I'm in the right place, but I wasn't, so bummer. That's something you just have to live with. And anybody who is accustomed to using Wacom EMR is probably already adjusted to that little challenge right there. Leads to such accidents as accidentally making people wall-eyed if you're trying to draw the pupil of an eye, that sort of thing. See, but you can get used to it. I'm doing just fine right here. You just have to be mindful. It's one of the reasons why we have the hover cursor over here, so we know where we are. Pressure levels, again, are very good. The fact that you've got tilt, let's go. I'm going up and down, and now I'm going sideways, and it changes the character. And let's switch over to something like chalk so you can really see it, or pastel. So there's an up and down line, and then when we do it sideways, it changes the character of it. It's good for shading. Again, the iPad Pro also very good at tilt, but still, for those of you who say, I need real desktop applications for my artwork, this is nice, and this is something that N-Trig still doesn't offer, nor does Wacom's new AES technology, which is active electrostatic, meant to be a bit more affordable and make for more lightweight devices, but one thing you lose is that whole tilt function right there. In terms of speed and follow, this is quite a fast computer. If you're doing an 18 by 24 inch drawing at 600 DPI, it's still going to keep up with what you're doing perfectly well. And now I've switched over to Corel Painter 2016, and Corel Painter Essentials does a lot of the same stuff. This gives you more brushes. It's one of the reasons I like it. I'm using a coarse, oily blender. And the texture, again, of the screen is very nice, and the pressure sensitivity and levels and the tilt support are good. And, for those of you who are still using legacy applications that do best with WinTab drivers, this is going to be a positive for you here, because all the programs that you've been using for the last 10 years that really, Wacom used to be the only game in town, you've got very optimized support here for WinTab going on and for Wacom in general. So it works very nicely. It's quite natural, and again, it's quick and it's fluid. And as always, one thing you're going to notice also is your edges are going to be less accurate. When I'm moving the cursor here, I really have to be careful when it comes to menus. Now, these drop down a little bit thanks to the title bar, but Wacom EMR loses its accuracy right near the edges, which can make you crazy when you're choosing tiny tools and things like that. Thankfully, the interface here scales nicely despite the fairly high resolution QHD 2560 by 1440 panel that we're working on. The relatively speaking, lack of glare here helps a lot too with making this fairly pleasant to draw on. But the nicest thing about it is it doesn't feel slippery, like you're going to slide all over like you do, sorry fella, when you're using a Surface Pro 4. Now again, this is primarily a high-end art creation device. This is not for, generally speaking, those who are going to buy this to take notes in school or anywhere else, but yes, you can do it. This is just Windows Journal over here, and of course it does work fine for that with pressure sensitivity and all that sort of thing. And I'm resting my hand on the glass. Palm rejection, really very good on this. Like that a lot, especially being left-handed. I do tend to keep my hand on the glass more than you right-handed people would. And you can see the ink is pretty fluid too, and how it flows there. So yes, you can use this certainly for that. And for those of you who are cartoon artists and you need to draw speech bubbles and things like that, pen works just fine for that. So that's the Wacom Cintiq Companion 2. By no means a perfect product. We have our quibbles with it. And also, clearly, this is not designed for consumers. We're just going to pick this up and have some fun and learn how to do drawing and illustration. Or maybe you're even actually making a living doing comics for the web, things that don't have to be super duper high resolution. This still is really what I would call almost an industrial product. It is geared towards professionals, and mostly companies are going to be buying these for you if you're lucky enough. If you're used to the Wacom EMR system, you have a big Cintiq display at your office, or you use the USB pads, this gives you a whole lot of consistency. It's also pretty powerful, so it can handle very large files. The display, the graininess that makes it feel good when you put the pen on it, a little bit more paper-like, is not the best looking if you want to use this as a consumer device to watch movies and all of that sort of thing, and even reading web pages. And it makes plenty of noise. I have to say that Vaio, with the Vaio Z Canvas, really came up with something amazing, adding quad core over this dual core and making it even lighter and even quieter. So there are other options out there, but for a lot of you who are accustomed to using this, like I said, professionally, and there's a lot going for it in terms of tilt sensitivity. You've even got rotation depending on the pen that you're using, lots of pressure levels, and for all those legacy WinTab application users out there, it is still an excellent experience for inking. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full written review and hit that like button.